this going. Got it. And record to. All right, welcome everyone. Welcome YouTube. Here we are at the Water, Wetlands, and Watersheds seminar. It is February 7th. And today we are lucky enough to have with us Don Rainey. Got this going here. Hi, little controls. All right. Oh, we got these people in. Okay. All right. So thanks so much for coming up, Don. So Don is a UF IFAS Extension Regional Specialized Agent. He's responsible for the Southwest Extension District Water Resources Program. So we talk a lot about water, mostly in urban settings, right? Today, he provides educational programs covering urban water quality, quantity, supply, and best management practices. Don's been the statewide coordinator for the Green Industries Best Management Practice Training Program for landscape management professionals. So what's a landscape management professional? Does that mean anything to you? Maybe the first time I heard those three words in a row. What's a landscape management professional? Lawn service company, right? Lawns could be private, could be golf course, could be whatever, wherever there's landscape to manage, I guess. Don frequently speaks at trade and professional association conferences and training seminars. He's received national and state level recognition for his exceptional programming and leadership abilities. So, Don, thank you so much for coming up. I believe this thing should work for you. Yep, there you go. There, then you get the lights.
All right. Well, by the nods and one comment, appreciate the coming on with professional landscape maintenance professional. You're gonna hear a lot more of that. So I may not have the science speak today that generally you may be accustomed to. I'll bring you what I see every day in the extension side. And I'll explain that to you. But first of all, it's definitely a privilege, and thank you for inviting me here today. Maybe some of you walk out here after this with a career in mind, but I'm always ready for questions. So let's get started. First of all, how many of you have heard of IFAS? Lighten up, maybe. I mean, what does it stand for? Okay, we got a little learning already. We'll get to that in just a second, but I want to kind of review what's going on today as far as my talk, and we'll give you some background into what I've done, what I'm doing, experiencing, and then a brief understanding of IFAS. So we'll determine what that acronym stands for. Then we'll go into, well, how does IFAS operate within the world of water? And then I want to talk to you what I'm seeing down south and southwest, where I'll show you on the map. We have expanding urban watersheds. And so those are growing every day. And then what are we doing as far as BMPs implement to protect that water quality, also to conserve as well. And then I've kind of identified through researching it for this talk today, there's a couple of emerging and intersecting issues that I want to kind of highlight. Keep on your mind as we move forward the next 20 to 30 years. So for my background, all right, so started in 2005 here at the Sarasota County Extension Office, was commercial horticulture agent. And then I moved in 2009 up to a GIBMP, which is Green Industries Best Management Practices statewide coordinator. And from that, we developed a program that addresses fertilizer applications for the commercial applicator, the landscape professional. Then from there, I moved into the interview, was hired as the UF Regional Specialized Agent, Water Resources. And again, the big threes is quality, quantity, and supply, and then branches off from that. There are also, forks in the road as far as urban pathways and then ag pathways. And I'm more toward the urban side of things. As far as education wise, University of Georgia, that's a agriculture, undergrad in ag, and then minor in econ, ag econ. And then here at the University of Florida, yours truly, one of my instructors, professor, and with environmental science, and then the University of Auburn. That's just last year. I kind of had a, you get over 50, you're like, I want to do one more thing. So yeah. I got the, is the first first class to go through the brewing science and operations at Auburn University.
You said brewing side?
Brewing science, so that's my plan B.
Brewing beer.
And,
Yeah, right?
so,
Or step of water quality.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
oh yeah, that's where I got PFAS.
On the mind, okay.
Oh yeah, we really looked at, what's in your beer.
Yeah.
Kind of keep that in mind, where your local brewery sources supply.
Huh.
And then my stakeholders, through the years, I've sat on a lot of advisories. I've been invited to a lot of committee meetings as far as, at the local, state levels. And so my contingency, or those who I generally work with, I'll call them the green industry. So not only are they the professional landscape maintenance people that you see every day with, runoff mowers and fertilizers and blowers, but it's allied professionals, those who are installing irrigation, those who are doing the calculations for, even fertilizer and water allowances for programming landscape irrigation systems and stuff like that. Especially turf grass. I was on the starting floor of the golf course BMP with Dr. Brian Unruh and Dr. Lori Trinholm years ago. We started that program to address golf course superintendents. Their industry wanted to, both industries, both the green industry and the special turf grass industries wanted to set a bar, because in 2005 to 2012, both industries were getting pounded. You're polluting the water. You're doing this. You're degrading the water. You're using our water. We need to drink this. So there's a lot of controversy, a lot of drama. I think I got blood pressure at that time. It never stopped. But what we did, we helped them set the bar from an educational standpoint. At least they have a standard and understanding of what they're doing out there has an effect on the land and the water. And then neighborhoods and communities. My my graduate degree, I worked with Dr. Amy Schober, and we went in and analyzed a community that had 5 phases, and the phases started in different time spans. So we could look at it from historical format, but we did core samples, and we found that variation between lot to lot was great. It was significant to where, okay, if we're prescribing a fertilizer or some type of maintenance program for this particular yard, would be the same. It's a cookie cutter. And, that's at the theory level, which you can't go out and tell a landscaper, do this here, but do that there, and do that there. So anyway, it helps in refining our recommendations of what we do in general terms, because we just can't be out there leaning over their shoulder the whole time at the practices, but we can definitely guide. I think that's it. University of Florida, University of Georgia. Oh gosh, you just start naming the SEC. They're a federal land grant university. We have over 111 to begin with. And then through legislation, it broke off into more and more. Florida A&M, FAMU down the road is a cooperative extension service underneath the federal land grant university system. It started all the way back in 1862. So these are the 3. Think of when you hear about IFAS, which is connected to the land grant university, think teaching, research, and extension. Been around a long time. You can see where teaching came in. This is all about agriculture. That's the whole reason for this grant. And what it did is really extraordinary. It provided the funding mechanism that is kind of new for the legislature to come out and do this, but they gave each representative and senator 33,000 acres each. This is your land within your state. You can sell it, you can keep it, but this is how you're going to fund your institution and build your institution. So a lot of them, like New York, got almost 1 million acres. So you can see what they did. They either built or they did some form of that grant, using that grant money. So it was a really new way of federal funding. Anyway, as we moved on through, Senator Hatch provided provisions to that with research. So our ag stations, our ag research stations came on board. And I'll show you a map here in a minute of all our research education centers that we have, including some, we changed. We got environmental support teams through these centers. The last major act, the Smith-Lever Act, 1914. So that actually kicked everything in gear and brought University of Florida online in the early 1900s, something like 1907. But no, I'm sorry, it had to be after 1914, but anyway, early 1900s, and that brought on University of Florida, which was located at Lake City at the time. And so we have our land grant university system here. Well, IFAS is part of that. And IFAS is the Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences. And so IFAS encompasses thousands of people that may, or I mean, a lot of our researchers have either 20, 30, or 40, or sometimes 100% appointment in their research. But for as far as extension, we're responsible for that county delivery system. When the research is going on, either a research center or up here on campus, the data, the information that comes from that is useful for our end users back home in our counties. We're responsible for getting that information, presenting it, and then follow up and see if it makes a change. And then communication back toward the campus is important as well. So using that three tier system is important. It also involves the teaching aspect. The teaching aspect is the formal. Think of the extension as the informal. We don't have, every week you got to come to class. It's more or less informal for the professional or for the family or youth, as far as youth is 4-H. All right, we'll speed up a little bit here, but this is our statewide facilities. We have an office. IFAS Extension has an office in every county, all 67 counties. And then from there, we have 12 research and education centers spread out. And then from there, we also have 5 research and demonstration sites. And also 3 4-H camps. So we're definitely, we have to do that so we can stay in tune more geologically what's going on with the climate differences as well in the state. So what is, how does IFAS work with water? And I just want to show you the initiatives we have in protecting natural resources, ZAG, environmental and policy and planning, urban. So we have these 4 nodes, so to speak, where we branch off and we go into our agriculture. Agriculture can be sustainable farming BMPs. It could be research and innovative initiatives. This is the hemp, not marijuana, but this is the hemp program that's being headed up by a number of our specialists. And it's all too about workforce development, community development, economic. That's one of the things that Extension brings to the county itself is economic and community development, workforce development. So growing that economic development is important, especially with our producers, growers, all the BMPs, and we'll talk more about BMPs, but addressing water quality with our BMPs also is important. If we break it down into the environment side, we have a number of programs offered through Extension. There's so many, I should have put other down here. But some of the big ones that came to mind was Master Naturalist Training and Certification. That program is very good. It's like a 16-week program. You go through it. It's great once you have that knowledge and you can sit on a lot of the local commission panels. You'll be able to communicate to them or at least express knowledge, give them an informed decision on what you know about that particular area. So it's very helpful. Those are also as a volunteer type format. We have Lake Watch, which has been around for a number of years now, and it is actually recognized by the EPA as far as being data significant and valid. We have our Sea Grants agents, and they kind of have their own college, but they do address marine and coastal resources, meaning hatcheries. And again, economic support and development. Fishermen down, on the coast depend a lot on our Sea Grants agents for knowledge and the economic, and that sometimes they'll have to come in, and facilitate meetings with local leaders too, to protect that industry or at least support that industry. And then Florida Friendly Landscaping, which is it's guided by 9 principles, and it's very in depth. I would just encourage you to go to the website. I'll talk a little bit more as we move through, but a lot of programming is coming from Florida Friendly Landscaping. In the water policy and planning, we have some I guess, nodes here, being one civic, which helps communities address complex issues. These are facilitated. So we have trained extension agents and actually volunteers as well that will come in and help decipher what's important for their community. How do we communicate that? Can we bring leaders in? Who do we need to get involved? all three of these are very important in helping with providing an informed decision at that local level and regional as well. So from the urban water quality, where I'm pretty much hanging my hat, the flood-friendly landscape, and again pops up here. This is the GIBMP, the Green Industry Best Management Practices, and I was a statewide coordinator for about 9 years under with Sustainable Floridians. We have a new stormwater ponds program and checklist, also a stormwater checklist too that works with municipalities and counties. Those are all pretty new. And of course, our real big standby here throughout the state, over thousands of volunteers, is our Master Gardener program. They also have the ability to influence their local leaders. So when the extensions budgets sometimes come up and there's a problem, we generally have a retired leader or someone that can speak that language, so to speak. And so they'll go in and, we'll communicate through them a lot of times. What we couldn't go in and do face to face. So very helpful. And so this is a pretty intense program. It's 10 to 12 weeks. You go from plant ID to insect ID. You do a lot of diagnostics within this Master Gardening program. So it's not you're gonna get your hands dirty, so to speak. So just moving through it. What's still time here? What I want to provide you here is the lens which I see things a lot, every day. And even driving up this morning, I left rather early. It was still dark, and I was telling David, I said I saw so much light I've never seen before in areas that I used to come here every week. And I would spend the night and go back home for about 5 years. And driving that 75 north and south, I knew my dark spots, I knew where things were, but it's all changed. It was a very rapid progress at that point too, especially after COVID. So the best time to see and identify these urban areas and where things are being developed, and this is actually dated, but you can see at night your urban developed systems, those urban watersheds that are within these areas, and how you can just see how water is contacting all areas on this map, and how it's going to move. You see the major byways. Of course, just point things out for reference for those of you not familiar with the state. This is Orlando, Jacksonville, Tampa, Pinellas. Pinellas is a county that's completely built out. There's not a spot of land you can build in. You can't even put a popsicle shack on the corner. Everything's built out. So, and it's old. It's an old city. I mean, their infrastructure is somewhat telling. And with water in mind, that's another critical area we have to keep in touch with. Then down, this is the Fort Myers, Naples area down through there. Of course, this is Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and then down toward the Keys, of course, Biscayne, Bay of Biscayne, and all that down there, just for reference. So we started out there. Well, how did we get there? Well, we started clearing land, or we brought in land, so to speak. Dr. Harris would say it's human transported material. It's not soil, it's material. And that's what they did. And the scale of this is unbelievable. This is not a tiny tractor. This is one of the steam shovels. This is a very advanced tract land, Marco Island. This is back during the 50s, 60s when things were coming up, even up toward Cape Coral area. And now this is what we see. So it's built on top of human transported material. It's not a characteristic of soil that we can determine properties or know how it's going to react primarily. Usually it's very compacted. pHs are all over the place too as well. But one thing that's missing is conveyance of water and treatment. These are direct connects. One of the things we try to educate neighborhoods like this, turn the gutter downspout back toward the line, or whatever you have. A lot of times you'll see they're directed straight down the driveway or over the top of the seawall. And we have to get treatment. Think about atmospheric deposition for a minute. Where is that water getting treated? Just falling out of the sky. If it doesn't go through a green space, it doesn't. It just goes on out into these canals. A lot of times these canals are built where you don't have a lot of movement. There's not a lot of flushing going on other than tidal movement. Sometimes that's not enough to get this water all the way up here back out and exchange. So that's another issue we were actually working with in Marco Island was algal blooms. Things that were just hanging out way too long, getting, really stinky, really unsightly. That's what matters is the smell and sight. Well, they don't, whatever else, I don't worry about it. Just, I want to sell my house one day and it's got to look like this. So those are issues that we're dealing with some of these canals and the way they were built and designed. And again, just to kind of give you the example of the rooftops. The rooftops are intercepting the rainfall, most of it on all these lots now. And they're gutter connected. So where is it going to go? It's going to go down and out. And so a lot of recharge is being missed now. We're not getting that the rain or any residency of rainfall to move downward, with gravity over time, taking it down through our groundwater. So we do have issues with rooftops and how they're connected. Most all your subdivisions, of course, are connected with this connection drain here, the sewer. We get the curbing, everything's impervious, and it's surrounded by turf, which requires a tremendous amount of maintenance and the risk of getting vegetation onto the curb and someone not coming back and blowing it off back on. But here, it's great. And this is another labor concern because my economic mind kicks in too, is how much do you want to pay to keep all this up? When other designs can come about from then. So what do you get? You get movement, not only water containing nutrients or other matters that we don't see, publicly. You do get public nuisances like this, these eyesores that will occur. This is actually I've lived on my street over 20 years, and a house just came in construction-wise at the end of the line. It's about a half a mile road. And now I see this through the front of my ditch. And they have silt. They put their silt fence up, but still these flushes are not controlling it at all. So if you look at that, just this one issue, that's compounding. That's going to compound with more and more development if improper BMPs regarding stormwater are not enforced through code. And where is it going to go? Well, think back to that huge community I just showed you with all the canals. These are the inflows. This is where it's going to come off the street. And I always tell my professionals, there's not a magical troll that lives in this pipe with a filter and not catching it. All the particulate and primarily, the other nutrients you can't see from going in. This is the cocoa plant. It's mostly brackish water system, but it ends up into the Niagara. And so habitat, you name it. Things are going on during our first flush. Our first flushes are really trying to educate our utility maintenance within our cities, municipalities. You have to sweep. Street sweeping is incredibly helpful to remove any debris. A lot of the particulate containing organic nitrogen and phosphorus is lying on top of the asphalt. And generally, you don't see it, but it does add up. And that first flush, meaning, we go through wet and dry periods in our state, or I know down south. The first flush is where everything comes down for the first time in the season, and it's really nasty. I just want to kind of end with this not the whole presentation, but just with this section about the historical viewpoint here. This is how many of you, anyone from Naples area, down south, Lady County, Collier? Okay, so this is down below. So you have Sarasota, well, you have Tampa, Sarasota, Fort Myers, and then you have Bonita Springs, and then you run into Naples. And this is called Port Royal. And this is now went to the Gulf. So we're on the west side of the state. This is 1950s. This is 1990s. You see a difference in the natural areas. Let me just kind of take that in. Think again, they're mostly rooftops. So the natural systems that once could buffer a lot of this activity that was going on the coast, maybe a little bit inland, is no longer there. So we do have a problem, and people would just kind of scratch their heads. Well, yeah, red tide is just killing me there. What's going on? Well, let's kind of think this over a little bit and see what's making the problem worse. We've always said red tide, but exacerbating it through nutrient loading is an important issue to discuss. So we do have a lot of loss of natural habitat going on. So many of you may have seen this. This is the model that we teach a lot of times with stormwater, and the increasing or the decrease of vegetative cover, and we get down to concrete mostly is going to, we're going to have higher runoff volumes, and then of course we're going to have less infiltration to our aquifer, which we depend about 93% of the population now depends on aquifer for drinking water. So below groundwater to drink. So it's critical that we understand and we try to inform our local leadership about this. Because stormwater is critical component in planning and also enforcement. This study is 2018, but it pretty much starts to break down what is in, I mentioned the first flush. Well, you can just about imagine you probably got a little bit of everything right here, other than central treatment, probably not going out the pipe. So there's a lot of practices that homeowners are doing that we teach to try to say, hey, look, if we can reduce, this or improve this practice, scoop to poop. That's one of the programs that we have. It can be very effective, especially if you're near the outfalls, near these coastal areas that are not getting treated as they should. So that's one of the things that we're educating on our watershed. Now I'm just going to move through a little bit faster here. The other, of course, stakeholders I work with are professionals that are in the golf course industry, and they, they're really up on what do we need to do. And so, they educate not only themselves, but their, the public and their members. Look, we're doing BMPs and these educational programs because we know we've got to change our mind and your mindset for what's going on, and it's water related issues. It could be consumption or it could be quality related. So it's important. Overall, the BMPs that I'm trying to educate are looking at structural and non-structural BMPs and seeing how, this vegetative buffer here, how important that is for a couple of things. And the biggest thing is prevent the fertilizer spreader trails from going off into the water. They don't have, and I'll show you in a minute, a little plate there that blocks them. Well, that's a practice that we can adjust to. We can put in these vegetative buffers. Plus, we can collect or immobilize nutrients that may be moving with sheet flow, depending on the slope. It gets immobilized through root systems, foliage, and able to, gives the plant abilities to uptake. Code and permit compliance generally as extension agents, we don't like to get in the middle of this. We're not the black hats, we're the white hats. We want to be your friend, we want to help you avoid those black hats. But the way things are now, especially with our fertilizer ordinances, we have about 100 of them, more than 100 across the state. It's including us as the educator. So, there's a lot of times we have to kind of explain that. But overall, when you hear BMP as a term, think one, it's supposed to be, of course, non-structural. It's supposed to be cheap. It's supposed to be relatively easy to change your behavior or adopt a certain practice. It does reduce your expenditures. Again, your labor costs may be involved as well as paying someone to put out the fertilizer that that's being recommended responsibly at that point. You have better educated workers, so even down to the equipment aspect, everything's improved through these courses. Worker safety, definitely. Landscape and turf quality, we do have to have green spaces. Our green spaces are getting launched up by development. So even the golf course now is looked at it as a green space. So we need to be, responsible in taking care of maintaining these green spaces so that they do still work and provide function. And then of course, toward that, reducing environmental impacts. So the programs that I've been speaking about, the GIBMP or the Green Industry Special Management Practices Program, they do have training material. Here's the golf course. We do have stakeholders. So, but DEP is our major stakeholder and funder here too for this program and also for this. And one of the things I kind of got a feather in my hat on was that I was on the ground floor with this BMP program, and then we get a call from Nationals, the Golf Course Superintendents Association says, we want you to develop this for all 50 states. So we took about 3 years, Dr. Underwood's headed this project up to provide a template for all states to go in and pick out the BMPs they need for their particular golf course. So kind of, Florida really got their name out there as far as being a leader in the golf course industry. So spoke all about this already, but again, what's guiding a lot of these BMP programs are requirements, especially at the state level and local level. Commercial fertilization, you have to have a certificate, or normally they call it a license to apply. But I do want to cover real quick the objectives here. So the first goal in a lot of these water quality BMP programs is to reduce that transport of sediment, nutrients, and pesticides. The surface groundwater or surface or groundwater. The other one is, this is the Florida friendly principle here. This is the right point, right place. Think that when you're selecting your plants, so that you maintain or you can reduce your inputs for the care of your plants, yet it's still aesthetic looking this way. The other one is, and we actually have a module where we break it down. We talk to them about how to calculate the rates and how to apply and what areas you avoid, within these application areas is important. Integrated pest management, IPM, been around since the early 60s, really took on, and the industry adopted it. And again, it's looking at the first rule in this is to identify the pest. Just don't throw chemical at it, thinking you're going to eliminate that issue. So that's another module that we educate. All right, deflector shields. In a lot of counties, I would go speak, the commissioners would go, they have to have this. This is called a deflector shield. And what that primarily does, it cuts down the throw of this fertilizer that drops down out of this bin, falls onto this spinner plate here, and distributes it out into the lawn or landscape as well. And here's this little close up of what's going on. All this is important. These mechanisms have to be working properly too, as well. So we educate that. Also calibration. They have to, provide performance as well regarding the amount of rate applied as you move through the landscape. They also wanted to see setbacks, and these setbacks started at 3 foot. And they said, no, we want to see a little bit more. So, okay, 3 foot with a deflector shield, meaning that deflector shield is going to prevent prels from fertilizer prels, or a lot of these are combo products that also contain either a herbicide or a pesticide. We don't want that into our water lines. So that's pulled away. If you don't have a deflector shield, I'll show you this. We got to pull you up the bank further. So this is just an example. I walked around. I followed this professional maintenance company around one day, just watching. Back up. The deflector shield was on. They're applying a product, and that's where they're at that level. But more stringently, we were looking at the 10-foot setback when you're not using a deflector shield, and also consideration. Even if you have the deflector shield, still move away from these water bodies. So definitely getting up the bank, and you can see the slope. That's another reason too. Application of fertilizer, it's in the middle of the summer. We get over an inch rainfall, things are going to move. Prels have the tendency or could possibly float depending on the height of the vegetation, the grass flow there. So there's a lot of issues, a lot of educational points that went into applying fertilizer. But here's the biggest one, is these impervious surfaces, and they're everywhere. And the deflector shield actually comes in play here. So educating them to turn the deflector shield or tilt it down around the corners and around the areas of your sidewalk, or near these huge, expansive impervious surfaces, we know where it's going to go. This is all sloped. That's designed for stormwater drainage. Everything that hits here that doesn't get removed, it's going to move. It's going to move into the water system, and the pond is right here. This is my old extension office here. So leaving the prels is not a BMP, and we try to educate them.
Now, what's the term you're using for the pearls?
Prels or granular.
The granular fertilizer.
Yeah,
It's
granular.
it's supposed to be a slow release, but
Not necessarily. It can be a quick release of form. It just depends on how it's coated or
Okay.
designed. A lot of this is old, not to say old school. This is actually some elemental other nutrients and rock as a filler.
Okay.
because, well, that's a whole new talk.
Okay.
But this is what we're trying to avoid is leaving these on impervious surfaces. Another biggie here, you could possibly have at least 60 to 80% of nitrogen and phosphorus and other essential nutrients left in these clippings. They've got to go back on. They can be recycled, they don't contribute to thatch. And so they could be recycled and keep that nutrient budget going. Here's another biggie, blown out water nozzles. We have an irrigation module where we try to educate them too on avoiding this inspection. It's important. And I was actually, this is my photo. I was in a community walking around. We were looking at a palm disease and I happened to look down. I'm like, what happened here? So
Beautiful.
this maintenance. This is, do you mean you actually pay someone to maintain this? And this is a huge community. And what they did, they got tired of the mulch out of these other areas going up on the sidewalk and whatnot. And I guess someone said, well, I can cut this out, put cement in, and we'll leave that for you. How about that? And a lot of times there's a palm tree stuck right there too. So there's a lot of poor fall development planting went on in some of these homes. So yeah, it's just a yield to common sense. So some of the emerging threats I want to talk about, and kind of changing gears here, is looking at how that growth and development in water is all going to intermix as we move forward. And one of the things that I reached out to was the 2016 publication where a couple of major contributors, 100 Friends of Florida, UFGO Plant Center, and FDAC, which is our Florida Department of Ag and Consumer Services, got together, funded this project. Hopefully that QR code works if you want to pull. It's not very thin document, not much to it, but it does have some language as far as what's going to happen. If things are going to continue to go the way that it's going now, a third of Florida's lands will be developed and related water demands will double. So it took a long view. It took a view from all the way to 2070 actually, and looking at trends and models and the what ifs. What if we had an alternative? How is that going to affect it? So this is one of the instruments used to inform our leadership. How things are, what's going to happen in the future, and how policy may affect it. So within the document, you have these comparative results as far as this is your. I'm going to break it down into these other areas. I apologize for the scale, but if you can see the red here on this side here, this is development side. And that's that 1/3 of Florida being all developed. So you can see with the potential, the baseline was 2010. So this is Homestead, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Tampa, Naples area, Jacksonville. You can see the red. Then as you get down to the 2070 trend, you can see the red infill just more and more, especially through central, down through here, down through the backbone of Florida, so to speak, the ridge. And then the alternative, if we can curb some of the practices that are going on, compaction, more dense growth instead of sprawl. This is possibility in 2070. So comparatively for water, though, what happens to water? So we're looking at usage here, and these are actually gallons per acre. Let's see, total demand gallons per day per acre. And so here we are in 2010, the baseline 2070, definitely getting red here on these areas, these metropolitan areas, these build outs. And alternatively, not a little different. So over there is the water use scenarios for the Panhandle. This would be okay. So Panama City area, and here Fort Walton, and maybe Pensacola. Over the right there in Pensacola. And so you can see the alternatives and the trends differences. It's kind of slow. But we see the greatest, I think, impact as we move down to the central area. You can see the baseline, 2070 and alternative. So that's on the scenarios that this report's running. And then on down south in South Florida, This is the Okeechobee, the Big O, and you can see, it's been red most of the time. Down right here, it just gets a little darker. So the takeaways from this is one, water demand for development is the main driver and reason for the increased consumption. And compact development patterns and increased conservation measures can reduce in that alternative scenario that they were presenting. But the wheels were turning at the time this report was made. And one of the things we already discovered at that time was water supply shortages were already existing in some municipalities areas.
You got about 8 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, but it leaves a little bit for questions, yeah,
Oh,
if
okay.
you can.
All right, so with this plan, it demands to go further. We have to go further this alternative, hoping that we can get, past that and then maybe back up as a buffer. But definitely more compaction and development's needed, and increasing conservation efforts. And within that, the quote was Water Star and FFL principles, those 9 principles I mentioned. The single most effective strategy to reduce it was to adopt these practices that are within these 2 checklists actually. And so they're BMPs to address that. So it does, but it gets further complicated. And within that, I mean, policy and pointing fingers. This happened last year. This midsummer. They said no more building. So this is in Pasco County, just north of Tampa. And the council said, is it too much growth or not enough water fueling Zephyr Hills there? And Zephyr Hills is famous for their drinking water, but they issued a moratorium on development. But then they started to scratch their head. Well, which is it, growth or is it the water itself? And come to find out, it's their water consumption permit that they had just signed 2 years earlier. They were already exceeding that amount. So it's okay. The Water Management District says we're good. We just have to reallocate what you need. So there's a lot of shell game, so to speak, going back and forth. Regarding the water and the development struggle. Reclaimed water is going to be one of the beneficial use. It's a beneficial use water, meaning you can't drink it, but you can use it in landscape, which that 2070 plan wants to see more alternative uses of than drinking water. So reclaimed water. The other concern here, and I get this a lot, I try to convey this to my golf course superintendents, the wells. If you're pumping, think about what you're pumping, talk to an engineer, try to figure out where is this breaking point to limit. Don't wait till you have an EC coming out of your irrigation system, that's beginning to cause harm to your plants. You've gone too far. And what we're trying to avoid is turnover. Because once these turn over to saline conditions, we have to go to RO, and that's very expensive, desalination. So, that's another important. All right, 2 minutes and I'll be out. Here's the intersecting dilemma. I'm starting to teach a little bit about what we call climate. It's landscaping under climate conditions. King tides is one of the things that's pushing me toward that, because we have maintenance going on, but when you have this surge of salt water onto the landscape, over time that's going to affect. So landscape practices are important even with climate change and climate smart landscaping. It's multifaceted, so we're going to see floods, droughts, heat stress, as and these financial damage and outlays that's going to come from this is very significant. Even in the eyes of that 27 plan we're trying to address. Even with plant hardiness zones, this has recently changed. So we have the shift, and the shift is happening moving north 13 miles per decade, where think about the plants that are selected here that can grow, may or may not can any longer, plus the insects are going to follow. So we have a pathogen issue coming up through here. Florida is one of the hotbeds for tropical invasive pathogens and plants, which is going to really harm our ag industry. So when I think about our ag industry along with it, it's just not a pretty landscape. So I know I'm mentioning green infrastructure in my introduction, but this is another thing we try to incorporate in teaching cities with stormwater issues. Allow your green infrastructure to help with this climate change predicament that we're going to be seeing. And so there's some there's some good literature out there, but the barriers are that it's slow. People are not wanting to adopt this. So again, this emerging issue compounded with the 2770, it's going to really, have things very complicated soon. So in conclusion, addressing water issues requires a concerted effort for everyone in the state. Our natural systems are more concrete, requiring more research and extension. And I literally mean more concrete. Our natural systems are becoming our urban watersheds. And so green infrastructure is definitely important there. And our BMPs are mostly common sense. What we're trying to teach out there is mostly common sense and actually save them money. And then responding to these emerging issues, such as climate change, is going to require more timely and intentional actions. And, providing that leadership and informed decision. Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, guys. All right, we have a few minutes for questions. So Megan is checking out the Zoom and the YouTube. So in the room, any questions for Don? Yeah, in the corner.
You mentioned the Stormwater Pond program. Can you talk more about that? I'm from Fantasy County. I live in a neighborhood in Parish, and they just put in like a living shoreline type on the inside and started doing even the actual fertilizer barrier. So are they two separate things, like putting in actual emergent wetland plants around the edge and the barrier to fertilizers, or is that all part of this?
All right, so it's a training program, so it's modulated. So you go through, understanding plants, design, install, monitoring, and so yeah, it covers all of those aspects. Now, as far as licensing you to be a contractor to go do it, we'll do that. There will be permits involved depending on the size and structure, mostly in the state of Florida now. You're going to have your compliance person with you to, understand the codes, but it gives you an education in how to maintain that stormwater fund, so it does provide benefit. Because we are trying to, get away from turf all the way to the pond's edge, and that program will, provide alternatives and talking points to do that. So, yeah, it's very encouraging. Next question.
First of all, thank you so much for such an outstanding informative seminar. I wish that you have the opportunity to go to every IFAS class and give this. I really mean it. And
Your annual report, yeah. Yeah.
so I guess you talk about the 3 feet buffers, is that a sharp, would it be possible to extend that 3 feet further? Then it is possible, if there's more area. I understand if there's a sidewalk, right, but it's not.
Yeah.
So, I was wondering, is it that 3 feet, can that be extended?
Most definitely. A lot of the municipalities have gone from 15 to 20 to none at all, depending on if they're on a canal, a seawall situation, then you have to redesign. You have to bring different planting schemes in to overcome that, and setbacks are what they'll mandate. So yeah, that is the minimal standard. And the way that came about was when these BMPs were being developed, industry, they had to have some input. We had to listen to them. And one of the things was, as it is now, the way things are designed, if we don't get nutrient to that area, then we're going to lose it through erosion. That's a possibility. But through alternative planting, we can overcome that. And even just adjusting the height.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
So I was curious, in those areas where you have the human transported materials and the building on top of it, are those waters ever used for recreational purposes? I couldn't help but be reminded of a few weeks ago, we had a huge talk about stormwater drains, and I think primarily South Carolina.
Yeah.
That talk was mostly focused on people contamination, and I saw that was touched on, because you mentioned in the urban areas, cut waste management as being a huge way of contaminant. But I'm just wondering if you've had any work done that sort of connected that fecal contamination and, potential, I guess, human,
The health issue?
the public health issue that kind of is connected to that.
Well, they definitely exist. The situation I had experience with Marco Island, where they had a rookery, and they didn't want, they couldn't make that connection, because of the birds are actually contributing to the loading and to the health issues, because the beach couldn't be open. And so we kind of had to retrace that. But yeah, depending on the time of the year, if it gets flushed. The amount, the load that goes on, definitely a critical issue, especially in those tight canal areas.
Yeah.
It's very compounded.
Are you looking at alternative lawn vegetation to reduce the water stress instead of like?
Yeah, so as the 2070 plan recommended, the Florida friendly principles, so part of that is design. And Dr. Mike Dukes and FFL team over there, you know, they're providing demonstrations, a major part of extension. So we do have communities that are all FFL now. And so a lot of leaders and other designers can go there and learn from how they reduce water consumption tremendously in some of those plantings.
That's Florida friendly landscaping, if you missed it, so it's like specific plants, they don't take a lot of water once they're in, they don't really have to be, yeah, so. Better than lawn.
They're a lot more than you think, and they're very aesthetic. It's not very, you know, plain James.
Yeah, they look good. All right, well, let's give Don one more round of applause. Thank you very much. And we'll see you all next week. Dr. Clark and I will get on your seminar abstract grades, so give us a little bit more time. We'll get back to you.